Welcome back to Sprague Homestead on your Top 5 Tuesday.
Today we're going to be talking about our top 5 biggest successes.
So I would say probably one of the biggest things we've had success on here on Sprague Homestead is our solar. Now if you look in the background, we have our solar panels behind us, and we kind of did everything ourselves on this. So initially when we first started looking at moving up here, we knew we wanted to go off-grid solar. We did a lot of the calculations, a lot of the research, what equipment we needed. We put the whole system in ourselves, and for 3 years we've been living off-grid on solar, and I'm going to call that a success.
That's not to say it hasn't been without a few little hiccups. We did have some help getting our numbers and everything together. My dad was a huge part of that. They had actually looked at moving down here and doing the off-grid thing well before we even looked at coming down here. So Dad had some of the background. Of course, Kanan being an engineer, they worked it all out. Initially, we got the system in, and I won't point fingers, but somebody wired some of it backwards and blew up a charge controller, wasn't it?
It was two of them.
So yeah, there were some minor hitches in there. And it's a learning curve, you know, you got to think about it before you turn on switches and run a bunch of stuff. And the winter gets a little bit more challenging, I would say, because you have way shorter daylight, and still, you know, you're trapped in the house and things you want to do all take power. So it's a learning curve, but definitely, I think, one of our biggest successes and probably one of the best things about living here. So one of our next greatest successes, I would say, was picking the right equipment for the homestead. We did our research on all of it before we started buying. So for our successes on this, we're going to count the tractor, our 16-foot flatbed trailer, and probably the quad. All of these things have been absolutely instrumental to really getting things done around the homestead. And I don't think of any of them I would do anything any differently. I think we picked all the right stuff for us. And they have definitely made life around here a whole lot easier.
So another thing we're going to consider to be successful on the homestead is that we have gone a little bit on the vehicle side for equipment. Now we have 2 different 4x4s that we use. One is primarily Nikki's bunny hauler. One is primarily my car part hauler, you guess. But they're both 4x4s. They're both 1500 series, and we put them to use a lot around here. So one of the great things about having multiple 4x4s is that nobody's ever stuck at home, and no matter what the conditions are, as long as the road is somewhat passable, we can get out with a 4x4. So having 2 4x4s, and then also if I go over there, we have another truck, having all those available for different functions on the farm is definitely success, and we had to learn how to do that to kind of get out of the car mode and go to trucks.
So next one of our greatest successes is probably going to be our garden. It's not perfect. My God, the weeds get away from me every year. But mostly we keep the beds pretty weed free. Every year is a different bounty. Last year we got a ton of tomatoes. This year the corn is looking great. But overall, we've never had a year where the garden hasn't produced something, and in enough abundance that I can and put stuff away. So even though, you know, we aren't going to get tomatoes this year, we've got a lot of them canned from last year that'll push us through to hopefully a better tomato year next year.
And just remember, gardening is kind of a year-over-year thing. So while you start small in the beginning, you kind of fumble through it, you lose some crops in that, you just need to come back next year, expand upon it, learn, and then carry it forward to the next year. So always keep improving your garden year over year, and just learn from your mistakes along the way.
One of our other greatest successes, we think, is probably the placement of all of our outbuildings.
So we have multiple buildings here on the property. Of course, we have 2 barns, we have 2 rabbit houses, we've got a turkey house, chicken house, and that. And the placement on the barn was really pretty strategic when we put them in. So now, probably the furthest thing away from the house is going to be our barns. And they're probably a good 500 feet from the house. That may sound like a lot in that, and of course during the winter time when you have to kind of trudge through snow on the really heavy years, it's not the greatest thing. But one beautiful thing about it is that all your animals are kept far away, and when you have somebody that likes to talk a lot, it's kind of nice to have them far away from the house where you don't have to hear them like they're in the backyard.
The other nice thing about having the barns quite so far up means that they have more pasture opportunities, at least because of the barn sitting on the driveway, at least on 3 sides of the barn. This gives us more opportunity to rotationally graze, even though the fences aren't in yet in a lot of it. The plans are to have 4 and 5 and even 6 pastures off of every barn. Gives us a lot more opportunity in a place where, you know, pasture is limited here. It gives us more time and more opportunity to get things grazed and hopefully, you know, be able to feed the animals off of the property a little bit better.
So that's it. For your top 5 Tuesday, those are 5 big successes we've had here on the homestead.
So what are your successes on your homestead? Everybody's got some. These are just our top 5. There are others, of course, and I'm sure you've got a lot. We want to hear all about them. Leave them down in the comments.
So that's it from Sprague Homestead. We'll see you next time, and
happy homesteading!